Welcome, and thanks for visiting the American Atheists website. I'm Ellen Johnson, president of American Atheists. You probably wouldn't believe the story behind my commentary this week if it hadn't been all over the news, and I assure you that I'm not making this up. But down in Atlanta, Georgia, Governor Sonny Perdue last week organized a prayer service on the steps of the state capitol building to pray for rain. Georgia and other parts of the South are in the midst of a serious drought. Around Atlanta, for instance, rainfall is down about 16 inches from the annual average. If these conditions persist, there is the distinct possibility that within the next 45 days or so, the major reservoirs that provide water to this area, like Lake Lanier, will literally dry up. It's a serious situation. Compounding the problem is the spectacular growth in and around Atlanta. During the 1990s, the metro area population swelled by more than 1 million people. And since the year 2000, an average of 86,000 new residents have been added to the population every year. More people and businesses mean higher demand for water and even less area for water runoff. And Atlanta also has the smallest watershed for any city of its size in the country. So, in the midst of this crisis, Governor Sonny Perdue invited clergy from a number of different religious faiths and organized a day of prayer to ask a God to let it rain. Yes, that's right. In the year 2007, the governor of the great state of Georgia has done the equivalent of a rain dance. There are a couple of different aspects to this story, beginning with the sheer absurdity of what Governor Perdue and his clergy supporters were pretending to do. Just think about it. They were actually praying to a God to send rain. You might expect that sort of behavior back in the Middle Ages when natural or even human-made calamities struck, but today we know much more about the weather, and we know that things like droughts and tornadoes and storms are simply part of the natural world. We're fortunate in the United States to be in what geographers define as the temperate zone, but we still have variations in the weather, and Governor Perdue hopefully knows that. But what about prayer to a God for a favor? In this case, rain. Does a God need to be reminded that things are getting serious and that millions of its followers are about to run out of water? If it has the power to make it rain, why didn't it just prevent the drought in the first place? They say that a God is allowing the drought to teach people to conserve. In the Bible, of course, catastrophes are often inflicted on humanity because people didn't obey a particular God, so this almighty entity got angry and behaved in a savage, vengeful manner. If a human being did something like this, we would rightfully condemn that person for lacking moral sentiment and kindness. But we're talking about gods here, and specifically Jehovah. You know, I could have a lot of fun here going on and about why people might believe and even pray to this cranky or forgetful almighty God, but there's an even more important point about Governor Perdue and his conjuring ritual. It was clearly and totally unconstitutional. If Governor Perdue or anyone else wants to pray for rain, they should be doing it in a church or in the privacy of their homes, and not at the state capitol. From a legal standpoint, Governor Perdue's rain dance violated the First Amendment of our Constitution, which prohibits governments from sponsoring and promoting, endorsing, subsidizing any religious ritual. The governor made sure that clerics from different religious sects were invited, so critics couldn't say that the event promoted a particular religion. But the event promoted religion in general, and it endorsed monotheism, and that in itself violates the law. It would have been interesting to see how the governor and the local clergy would have reacted if a Satanist or a Wiccan or a Scientologist showed up to participate. The fact is that even if all the clergy of all the religions were present, the rally was still inappropriate, unconstitutional, and frankly, a waste of time and public resources. And it makes the United States a laughingstock internationally. About a block away from the event, members of the Atlanta Free Thought Society protested the rain dance. This isn't the first time political or religious leaders have engaged in this sort of demagoguery. In Alabama, Governor Bob Riley issued a government proclamation declaring official days of prayer for rain and led his own prayer vigil on the steps of the state capitol in Montgomery. Last year, the mayor of Lubbock, Texas, organized a prayer vigil for rain as well. And it's not just the weather that is being used as an excuse to violate our Constitution and win votes for politicians. In 2006, the city of Jacksonville, Florida, spent over $100,000 organizing a public prayer rally called Day of Faith, Arming Our Prayer Warriors. The goal was to ask a God to bring down the municipality's skyrocketing murder rate, and this was after an 8-year-old child was killed in a drive-by shooting. A God didn't prevent the death of that youngster, but that didn't stop politicians and clergy from appealing to the most absurd of human behaviors. American Atheists took the city to court, and we won a negotiated settlement, and the town will not engage in such foolish and illegal activity again. Government-sponsored prayer rallies like the ones in Atlanta and Jacksonville, whatever the excuse, are not only a distraction from the real steps we need to take in order to solve problems, they're an insult to our intelligence, and they also violate the Constitution. And they probably don't even work. If one waits long enough, it will eventually rain. Had major thunderstorms drenched the Atlanta areas just after Governor Perdue's rain dance, well, he and other believers would have conveniently pointed to the deluge as proof that a God heard the pleas of the faithful or suddenly remembered to send rain. But if it didn't rain, well, believers would insist that there weren't enough prayers or that a God had some deeper hidden purpose in sending the drought. As it turns out, there were light sprinkles in the area, but nothing like the rain God worshippers had hoped for. Congratulations to the Atlanta Free Thought Society for speaking out against this unconstitutional and absurd promotion of Bronze Age thinking. And if Governor Perdue pulls another stunt like he did last week, perhaps the next Pray for Rain Fest should also include the sacrifice of a goat to appease even more ancient gods. Now you know. If you agree with me, please become a member today and send a generous contribution to help further our work on your behalf. Thank you for visiting the American Atheist website. I'm Ellen Johnson.